The hospital hallway was eerily quiet, too quiet for a place that carried both the sound of last breaths and newborn cries. The faint hum of fluorescent lights filled the space as a young woman sat alone on a cold metal bench, her trembling hands gripping a worn-out denim jacket that didn't belong to her. It was his, the man who had just walked out of her life as if she meant nothing. The man whose every word had cut her deeper than the wounds life had already left. But even as he turned his back on her for what she thought was the last time, she saw it his eyes. They said everything his lips refused to. Pain, regret, love, sparkles. If you believe in kindness, forgiveness, and second chances, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us tell more stories that touch the heart. Her name was Lena Carter, a 26-year-old woman who had spent most of her life fighting battles no one could see. Abandoned by her parents as a child, raised in foster homes, and hardened by loneliness, Lena had built walls around her heart that no one could climb until she met Ethan Vale. He was everything she wasn't: calm, collected, and detached from emotion. A 30-year-old architect whose quiet strength and composed demeanor drew her in like a moth to a flame. They met at the charity event she'd volunteered at, where Ethan had come as a reluctant guest dragged in by his business partner. Lena had accidentally spilled coffee on his crisp white shirt, mortified beyond words, but he just smiled and said, "It's okay. Happens to the best of us." That moment, simple, unremarkable, became the start of something she never saw coming. Over the next few weeks, Ethan kept showing up at the charity shelter. At first, he said it was for the cause, but soon, he was helping Lena fix broken tables, repaint walls, and share sandwiches under the dim light of old bulbs. Their laughter began to fill the silence that used to echo in her heart. Yet, beneath his easy smile and quiet charm, there was something hidden, a shadow behind his eyes. Sometimes she'd find him staring into the distance, lost in thoughts he never shared. When she'd ask, he'd brush it off with a soft, "Just tired." But she knew there was more. Months passed. They grew closer, so close that Lena began to believe love could be something safe. Something real. He'd walk her home every night, sometimes stopping at the bakery to buy her favorite strawberry muffins. They'd sit on her old apartment rooftop, watching the city lights flicker like scattered stars. It was during one of those nights, when the air smelled of rain and her laughter echoed softly, that he said something she'd never forget. "If you ever think I don't care," he said quietly, "remember this: some people love in silence." She didn't understand then, but she would. It started changing one evening when Ethan became distant. His calls grew shorter, his visits less frequent. His smile faded, replaced by the same cold, unreadable expression he wore the day they met. Lena tried to ask him what was wrong, but every time he pulled further away, until one night, after a long silence, he came to her door. His face was pale, his eyes tired. He handed her his jacket, the same one she now held in the hospital corridor, and said, "You should forget about me, Lena. I'm not who you think I am." And just like that, he walked away. Lena stood frozen, her chest aching in a way words couldn't describe. She spent days searching for answers, calling his number only to be met with silence. She went to the shelter, the places they'd been, but he was nowhere. Weeks passed before she received a call from an unknown number, a call that led her to this hospital. Ethan had collapsed during a site inspection. The doctors said it was a rare heart condition he'd been battling quietly for years. He'd known all along that his time might be limited, but he never told her. He never wanted her to carry that pain. Now, as Lena sat there outside his room, she could hear the faint rhythm of machines through the half-open door. She hesitated, then walked in. Ethan lay there, eyes closed, his skin pale against the white sheets. A bouquet of half-wilted flowers sat by the bedside. No name, no card, only silence. She sat beside him, tears slipping down her face, whispering words she'd never said before. "You didn't have to go through this alone," she murmured, voice trembling. "I would have stayed." His eyelids fluttered, and for a brief moment, he opened his eyes. Those same eyes, haunted, tender, full of unspoken love. He tried to smile but could only manage a weak breath. "I didn't want you to see me like this," he whispered, his voice fragile as glass. "I thought if I pushed you away, you'd move on. Be happy." Lena shook her head, gripping his hand tightly. "You acted like you didn't care," she said, tears spilling freely now. "But your eyes, they told me everything." Ethan's gaze softened, his eyes glistening with emotion. "I never stopped caring," he said faintly. "I just didn't know how to love you without breaking your heart." That night became a turning point, not because he miraculously recovered, but because for the first time, Lena understood the depth of silent love. For weeks, she stayed by his side, reading to him, laughing through tears, and watching him slowly heal. The doctors said his progress was unexpected, almost miraculous. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was her. Spring came, and the hospital garden bloomed in colors so bright they almost looked unreal. Ethan began to walk again, his steps slow but steady. Lena was always there, her smile patient, her love unwavering. One afternoon, as they sat beneath the cherry blossom tree outside the hospital, Ethan looked at her and said, "You stayed." She smiled softly. "You thought I wouldn't. I thought I didn't deserve it." Lena reached for his hand. "Maybe we don't always deserve love, but sometimes love deserves us." That moment, quiet and pure, became the start of their healing. Ethan's recovery took months, and it wasn't easy. There were relapses, pain, and fear. But through it all, Lena's presence reminded him of something he'd forgotten long ago, that love isn't measured by grand gestures or perfect words. It's in the quiet sacrifices, the patience to stay, the courage to believe when everything feels lost. When Ethan finally returned to work, he wasn't the same man. He was softer, more open, and no longer afraid to show emotion. He rejoined the charity shelter with Lena, helping rebuild it into something beautiful, a place for lost souls to find warmth again. Every corner of the shelter held pieces of their journey. A photograph of Lena laughing on the wall. A small plaque near the entrance that read, "For those who love in silence, and for those who listen with their hearts." Months later, one evening as they stood on that same rooftop where they used to watch city lights, Ethan handed her a small box. Inside was a silver necklace with a tiny pendant shaped like a heart, but it wasn't new. It was slightly scratched, aged, as if it had been kept for years. "My mother gave this to me before she died," he said softly. "She told me to give it to the one who makes my heart feel alive again. I never thought I'd find her." Lena's eyes welled up. She touched the pendant gently, realizing that it wasn't about perfection, it was about meaning. About everything they had endured. Years passed, and life, as it always does, changed. They built a life together, a modest home filled with laughter and the smell of freshly baked bread. Ethan's health remained fragile, but his spirit was strong. Sometimes, when he'd get tired, he'd sit by the window, watching her as she painted, his eyes reflecting the same silent love she saw years ago. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden light across the room, Lena turned to find him looking at her quietly. What? She asked, smiling. He shook his head, eyes soft and full. Nothing, just even after everything, I still can't believe you stayed. She walked over, knelt beside him, and whispered, You taught me what love really means. It's not about promises. It's about showing up even when it hurts. Ethan smiled, and for a moment, the years of pain, silence, and distance melted into something beautiful. They had found each other not through perfection, but through imperfection that became love's truest form. Sparkles, if this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and share it with someone who believes in love that never gives up. And don't forget to subscribe for more emotional, real-life stories that remind us how beautiful second chances can be. Speech balloon before you go. Comment below what's one act of kindness or love you'll never forget. As the story of Ethan and Lena reminds us, sometimes the quietest love is the loudest. Sometimes the people who seem like they don't care are the ones who care the most. Because real love doesn't always shout, it stays, it heals, and it sees you even in silence.